Is there actually a undisclosed division where your job is to gaslight and confuse people, or is it
absolutely,
or is it everyone's job to gaslight and distract? Because you know, like the opposite of a marketing. You know how like the propaganda book that was written?
Right.
The opposite of marketing, which is you're marketing a lie to confuse the American people so they're looking here versus here. You're saying there's a division of people that do that intentionally.
Yes. It's a whole counterintelligence, psychological warfare operations out of CIA and other agencies, and that's what they do. And, you know, I've known some of these players since the early 90s. You know, one of them that had been involved back in those days was had been head of special forces and Army intelligence named General Albert Stubblebine, and he, you know, he offered me personally in May of 1992 $2 billion if I would join his team and not do what I've been doing. And you know, I was in my 30s, and as a young doctor, I thought, well,
$2 billion, Steve.
Yes.
You know how hard that is to believe?
Oh, I don't care. Put me under a lie detector. Ask my wife. We're having our 46th anniversary this year. That's what happened. Then he approached her. But you have to understand the money involved. Why is this so secret? It either exists or it doesn't exist. It does exist. How could it be kept so secret? And this is a long discussion to get into of what the modus operandi is of counterintelligence on this. But, you know, it's through bribery, blackmail, threats, wet works, targeted killings, assassinations.
You know why $2 billion is hard to believe? Because the only reason he would have gone to $2 billion is because you kept saying no to 50 million, 10 million, 100 million, 200 million, and it eventually goes to $2 billion.
No, because they knew, okay, let's cut to something that's very controversial. You know, this is what's starting to come out through these black sites where they have operators that target the non-human craft. So if you go back to 1991, I published a paper called The Comprehensive Assessment of the UFO/ETI subject, extraterrestrial intelligence subject. It went all through the intelligence community and the aerospace community. And part of in that paper was a description of the technologies that are non-human, where they interface with very advanced electromagnetic fields for communication with thought. It'd sort of be like what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink, but without the speed of light, where there's a direct interface between the conscious field and thought and a machine. That is how non-human civilizations can communicate across the vastness of space-time, and it's done through a trans-dimensional electronic system. So I knew this in 1973 after I had a very close encounter with these civilizations. So when I wrote this paper, I described it as in two directions, TAC and CAT. So technology-assisted consciousness, where you have a technology, like the headset you're wearing, that would augment your own conscious abilities. And everyone's heard of those CIA remote viewing programs and things like this, where they were using people like Ingo Swann to see with consciousness, like psychic spying, psionic. And a lot of people laugh at that. And I said, no, it's a legit science, and it was done for 30 years at the CIA with a team of people. I know quite a few of them. Now, imagine having a technology that augments that capability. Then reverse it. Then imagine that there's the other way around, where you have your own consciousness can augment a technology. So it flows both directions, from technology to mind and back. Now, what is that? Now, the science of consciousness is very controversial, but people like Dr. John at Princeton started the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Group, the Peer Lab. And they were able to prove, through using quantum machines, random number generators, that people could just sit and put their awareness on this type of machine, and it would shift the curve of whether it was spitting out zeros or ones. It was just a digital machine, right? Spitting out, it's a random number generator is what it's called. And they were able to prove to a scientific certainty that that's true, that there's field consciousness. Now, we're taught in science, and I'm speaking now as a doctor, that it's all locked in our skull and our brain. But there's something that is beyond that, that is consciousness. And some people say, oh, it's spirit. Well, you can call it whatever you want, but it's the consciousness field, and it can be scientifically accessed. So what they decided back when this was discovered in the 40s and 50s was to figure out how that could be used for communications and also tracking of the NHI, non-human intelligence craft, or ET craft. So I had developed my own techniques for doing that. If you look, we have an app called CE5 Contact that teaches this. And a lot of people go, that's pretty far out stuff. I said, well, what do you think you're dealing with? You're dealing with Ma Bell when you're dealing with an interstellar civilization that's 100,000 or 1 million years more advanced than we are. So I think that, one of the big problems is the gap between current science and technology and what's known in classified programs dealing with this. So the head of Army Intelligence knew I understood all this. And I guess they had people seeing what we were doing and that we had successfully made contact with these objects. Famously, the first one that was publicly known and published was in Pensacola, where we had 60 people out and we were using this technology to make contact, and then 4 of these craft pop into the sky. One of them ended up on the front page of the Pensacola paper. So it was then that these guys surfaced, General Stubblebine and some other people. So I think the value, I don't think I'm important in this at all. I think
I'm still stuck on $2 billion because to me,
that's nothing to these guys.
Well, but no, hear me out. Rob, can you pull up the Stubblebine fellow, if you don't mind? Fun fact about this guy, he was born on February 6th, and he died on February 6th. And Ronald Reagan was born, I believe, on February 6th. If you can go up to, so here's this is the person that offered you $2 billion.
Correct.
So U.S. Army general, who active duty, spent 32 years, beginning an Army officer, later on, intelligence, credited redesigning U.S. Army intelligence. Over the course of it, he became widely known that he maintained a keen interest in psychic warfare throughout his career. He sought to develop an army of soldiers with special powers, such as the ability to walk through walls. Whoa.
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
So, U.S. Military Academy, 1951, Columbia University. So he's an educated guy. Go a little bit lower. Army officer, military intelligence, got it. Lived to 87. Awards, Distinguished Service Medal, Legion of Merit and Bronze Star, Air Medal, Respect, Cold War, Vietnam War, Invasion of Grenada. Okay, so this is qualified as it gets. A key sponsor of Stargate Project. Maryland someone was convinced of the reality of a wide variety of psychic phenomena. Keep going lower, Rob. His interest at the bottom, he was interested in UFOs and
psychology.
Parapsychology, was a member of Oath Keepers. He and his wife, Rima, were active in Patriot Movement and appeared together guests on Alex Jones' show. And they established a nonprofit organization called Natural Solutions, which disseminated conspiracy theories about vaccinations, pharmaceutical companies, and genetically modified foods. 9/11, he claimed the airplane did not crash into the Pentagon. Believed that an airplane did not crash in the Pentagon on September 11th. He said he did not know what did, okay? And then on the bottom, the swine flu, he believed, was a genetically engineered virus that is part of a World Health Organization scheme to sterilize untold number of people. So he offered you $2 billion. So,
well, he was representing a group that had that access.
So you were 30 years old. They wanted to give you $2 billion.
No, in 92, I would have been 36.
36 years old. So when he offered, so you know why that's tough? You ever seen a movie, Horrible Bosses, where they say, hey, we're trying to kill our bosses. And he says, you got to go talk to motherfucking Jones. And they go, and the guy they're negotiating with, he says, hey, we want to take out our bosses, $50,000. And then he says, $500, I'll do it, and it kind of goes to the bottom. It's like, for a person to go from zero to we'll give you $2 billion for this, it's truly, the word is unbelievable, because somebody would offer $100,000, $500,000,
well,
$1 million.
They knew that none of that amount would have mattered. They thought if it was large enough and had real power behind it, because they had money from the collapse of the Soviet Union out of Eastern Europe that they had confiscated through these black programs and rather criminal tentacles that they were operating. Later he left all that behind. So I'm talking early 90s here, not what he did, in the 2000s. But they had the ability to do that, and I think they thought I would be more trouble than they wanted to risk. And I think they really wanted to get people involved in their projects that they could control, because money controls people. And this is why I've always rejected offers of money or position or power, and do to this day. But that's not often done. And I guess they had a reading on who I was as a soul or a person, that it would have to be a big number to move me. And although I must say, when he went behind my back to my wife thought he was so nice. And I say, yeah, devils speak with forked tongue, because of my grandmother's Cherokee. But
so you try to charm your wife?
Yes. Yeah.
And what did he say that maybe your wife came to you and said, babe, you should consider this?
Well, there's a lot of flattery, the usual things that con artists and people like that do.
So you would call him a con man?
Well, on this, certainly. I mean, but he was an operator. He was someone who was operating with a number of other people who are still around today, some of them, working that issue, trying to divert people who could be a little bit too much trouble. As Gordon Croydon said, who used to publish Flying Saucer Review that, Prince Philip and Prince Charles would get. He told me when we interviewed him at his cottage in England, he says, people who are a little too much trouble, we just can erase them, and get rid of them.
Yeah, because when you say $2 billion, it's a lot easier to get rid of you than pay you $2 billion.
Correct.
If they have, if a person has enough power to approve a $2 billion bribe, that person also has the same enough power to also eliminate you.
Correct.
So why waste $2 billion?
Well, and those attempts happened after that. But anyway, I don't want to get too much into that part of the person. My personal story is not, it's a tragic story, actually. But so there's no point in rehashing 30 years of that. We don't have time. I think more important issue is who has access to that kind of black money, and what will they do to keep it secret? That's the only reason I brought this up. So everyone thinks, oh, well, it's a $50,000 bribe. The amount of assets that this organization, it's a transnational criminal organization. It's not just U.S., it's global. And their long game, which is, I think, about to happen. I'll just say, give you a preview. There's two ways this comes out. It comes out truthfully, and it's quite clear that these non-human intelligences and craft are not hostile. If they were hostile with the technologies that they have, we'd be gone. We would have been gone in August of 1945 when we detonated the first atomic bomb. It had been over. However, they have spent a lot of money and time over the last 70 years staging, false alien threats. So let me start ticking these off for you. The abduction syndrome, totally a staged CIA and other corporate event. One of the men that we have who come forward recently was abducted by a Raytheon triangular craft, he and his wife, and suffered terrible injuries back in 2000, 2001. So that is not in dispute. We can prove what I just said. The animal mutilations everyone hears about, those are 100% man. Those are human. They're all portrayed as alien. Then you have the sort of frightening stories of these objects being down in developing world countries, blowing up a whole village. That's us. We've done that. Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm on Connect. If you'd like to ask me questions or learn more about the UFO UAP issue, contact me there, and we can unpack whatever you want to know about the disclosure efforts, about covert technologies, and what's going to be coming up in the next year or so as we go forward in a large disclosure on the extraterrestrial and UFO issue.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.